The laughter started before he even touched the microphone. A crowd filled the town square. Music blasted from giant speakers. Bright lights flashed across the stage. Families filled rows of folding chairs while vendors sold food along the sidewalks. Then one tired single dad found himself standing alone under those lights. His work boots were dusty. His shirt was faded. His hands trembled as hundreds of eyes locked onto him. The host grinned. Someone in the crowd shouted, "This should be good." Laughter spread through the audience. The microphone felt heavy in his hand. Near the front row stood his 11-year-old daughter, Natasha. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't laughing. She looked terrified. Because she knew something the crowd didn't. She knew what her father had been hiding for years. And in a few moments, the entire town was about to find out. What happened next would leave an entire community speechless. James Lucan woke up every day before sunrise. Not because he wanted to. Because he had to. He lived with Natasha in a small apartment above an old hardware store. The place wasn't much, but it was home. Every morning followed the same pattern. James packed lunches, checked bills, counted every dollar, then woke Natasha for school. Life wasn't easy. James worked wherever work was available. Some days he stocked shelves. Other days he cleaned offices. On weekends he helped move furniture. The jobs changed. The struggle didn't. By the time he returned home each night, his body felt exhausted. Still, he always made time for Natasha. That was the promise he never broke. They ate dinner together every evening, no matter how simple the meal was. One night Natasha noticed him staring at unpaid bills. "Dad, are we okay?" she asked. James forced a smile. "We're fine, kiddo." But she knew he wasn't telling the whole truth. Children notice more than adults realize. Natasha rarely complained about anything. She understood how hard her father worked. She saw the sacrifices he made. And she loved him for it. Most people in town barely noticed James. To them, he was just another hard-working man trying to get by. What they didn't know was that James once had a dream. Years earlier, he loved music. He sang everywhere. At church events, family gatherings, local shows. People stopped what they were doing to listen. Then tragedy changed everything. After losing Natasha's mother, James buried that part of himself. Music disappeared from his life. Dreams gave way to responsibility. Survival became the priority. Only Natasha knew the truth. Sometimes late at night she heard him singing quietly in the kitchen. Soft melodies drifted through the apartment walls. The sound always stopped when he realized someone was listening. One evening Natasha walked into the kitchen while he was singing. His voice filled the room. She stood frozen. No matter how many times she heard it, she was amazed. "Dad," she said when he finished. James jumped. "You should sing again." His expression immediately changed. "No. Why not? That chapter is over." Natasha shook her head. "I don't think it is." James looked away. Some dreams hurt too much to revisit. A few days later, colorful posters appeared throughout town. Community talent night. Music. Comedy. Prizes. Entertainment. The entire town buzzed with excitement. Everyone except James. To him it was just another event. Another reminder of something he no longer allowed himself to want. But Natasha stared at those posters every day. And slowly, an idea began to form. The week of the talent show arrived. James had more pressing concerns than local entertainment. His truck needed repairs. Bills were piling up. One of his jobs had reduced his hours. Then he received a call. The organizers needed help setting up equipment before the event. The pay wasn't much. But every dollar mattered. So he agreed. The night of the talent show arrived. The town square overflowed with energy. Families filled the seats. Children ran between booths. Music echoed through the air. James arrived early and spent hours carrying equipment, moving boxes, and helping wherever he could. Most people paid little attention to him. That was normal. Then he noticed Natasha standing near the stage. She wore an unusual smile. "Dad, can I stay and watch the show?" "Of course." She hugged him tightly. Something felt different. James just couldn't figure out what. As the show began, the host, Carl Scott, stepped onto the stage. The crowd erupted in cheers. Carl loved being the center of attention. The performances started. Some acts impressed the audience. Others didn't. People laughed, cheered, and applauded. Everything went smoothly until Carl announced a surprise segment. "We're going to bring some audience members on stage." The crowd loved the idea. Carl began pointing at random people. Most declined. Some participated. Everyone laughed. Then Carl spotted James standing near a stack of equipment. His grin widened. "Oh, this is perfect." Several people turned. James instantly felt uncomfortable. "Come on up here!" Carl shouted. James shook his head. "No thanks." The audience laughed. Carl kept pushing. "Oh, don't be shy." More laughter followed. Then Edward Hill, one of the town's most successful businessmen, stood up. "Get him up there!" he shouted. "This should be entertaining." The crowd laughed even harder. James felt his face burn. Every eye seemed fixed on him. He wanted to disappear. Then he glanced at Natasha. She wasn't laughing. She looked nervous. The crowd began chanting his name. The pressure grew stronger. Reluctantly, James climbed the stage steps. Every step felt heavier than the last. When he reached center stage, Carl handed him a microphone. The audience waited, smiling, expecting embarrassment, expecting a joke. Then Natasha stood. "Dad, sing!" The entire square fell silent. James froze. The crowd looked confused. Carl laughed. "You sing?" A few people chuckled. James wanted the moment to end. Natasha stepped closer. "You can do it." Her voice shook. But her belief didn't. James stared at her. Years of memories flooded back. The dream. The loss. The promises he made to himself after his wife died. He had buried that part of his life for so long that it barely felt real anymore. Someone shouted from the crowd. "This is going to be painful." More laughter followed. James lowered the microphone. "I can't." Natasha's face fell. That hurt more than anything. He started to step away. Then another voice stopped him. "James!" Mrs. Hazel Rosa sat near the back of the crowd. She knew him well. She knew how hard he worked. She knew the sacrifices nobody else saw. "You've spent years being brave for everyone else," she said. The crowd grew quiet. "Be brave for yourself tonight." Those words hit him hard. For the first time, people stopped seeing a joke. They saw a father, a daughter, a story. Then Natasha walked closer. Tears filled her eyes. "Dad." He looked at her. "You always tell me not to give up." James swallowed. "You tell me to keep trying when things get hard." Her voice cracked. "So why won't you try?" The question landed like a punch. Because she was right. For years he taught her courage. For years he taught her hope. Yet he had stopped believing those things for himself. The square became completely silent. No one laughed. No one mocked him. Everyone waited. Fear still gripped him. But another feeling began pushing back. Hope. Small. Fragile. But real. Carl looked at him. This time there was no joke in his voice. "If you want to sing," he said quietly, "the stage is yours." James stared at the microphone. His hands shook. His heart pounded. Years of silence balanced on one decision. Natasha smiled through her tears. Mrs. Hazel nodded. The entire square waited. James raised the microphone, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and sang. The first note floated across the crowd. Everything changed instantly. Heads lifted. Eyes widened. People leaned forward. The audience that expected failure sat frozen in disbelief. James continued. His voice was powerful, beautiful, filled with emotion, pain, love, loss, hope. Every difficult year seemed woven into every word. Carl's smile disappeared. Edward Hill stared in shock. Mrs. Hazel covered her mouth. Natasha cried openly. The square felt transformed. Nobody checked their phones. Nobody whispered. The only thing that mattered was the man standing on that stage. Near the front row, a woman suddenly stood up. Her name was Courtney Britt. She hadn't planned to stay long. A delayed business meeting had brought her into town. But now she couldn't look away. Courtney had spent years discovering musical talent. She knew greatness when she heard it. And what she was hearing was real. James reached the chorus. The emotion in his voice swept across the audience. People wiped tears from their eyes. Others stared in stunned silence. When the song finally ended, nobody moved. For one long second the square remained silent. Then the crowd exploded. People jumped to their feet. Applause thundered through the night. Cheers echoed across the town square. The same people who laughed minutes earlier now stood in complete awe. James lowered the microphone. He looked overwhelmed. Carl stepped forward. For once, he didn't have a joke. James, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. The audience applauded again. Then Courtney approached the stage. She introduced herself and handed James a business card. We need to talk. James stared at the card. Confused. Hopeful. Unsure. For the first time in years, a door had opened. The days that followed felt unreal. Someone uploaded a video of the performance online. The clip spread quickly. People shared it everywhere. The town couldn't stop talking about the single father who shocked everyone. James still woke up before sunrise. Still packed Natasha's lunches. Still worked hard. But something had changed. People saw him differently. More importantly, he saw himself differently. Courtney kept her promise. She introduced him to people in the music industry. She helped him find opportunities to perform. Nothing happened overnight. Nothing was handed to him. But one opportunity led to another. Local performances became larger events. Larger events became bigger stages. With every performance, James regained a piece of the dream he thought he'd lost forever. And Natasha was always there. Front row. Every show. Every song. One evening after a performance, they walked toward their truck beneath a glowing sunset. Dad? Natasha said. Yeah? I told you that part of your life wasn't over. James laughed. You did. She smiled proudly. I know. They stood together for a moment. Years earlier, James believed giving up his dream was the cost of being a good father. Now he understood something important. Dreams don't always disappear. Sometimes they wait. Sometimes they hide. Sometimes they need the right person to believe in them. For James, that person was Natasha. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. Challenges remained. Bills still arrived. Responsibilities never disappeared. But hope had returned. And hope changes everything. The greatest transformation wasn't the applause. It wasn't the attention. It wasn't the opportunities. It was the fact that James finally saw himself clearly. Not as a forgotten man. Not as someone defined by struggle. But as a father who never quit. A father who kept moving forward. A father who finally allowed himself to be seen. And every time he stepped onto a stage, one person smiled brighter than anyone else. Natasha. Because she never stopped believing in him. Sometimes the world decides who a person is before hearing their story. People looked at James and saw worn work boots. They saw a tired face. They saw a struggling single dad. What they didn't see was the strength beneath the struggle. They didn't see the sacrifices. They didn't see the sleepless nights. They didn't see the dream he buried for the sake of his daughter. The truth is that many people carry gifts the world never notices. Many parents put their own dreams aside to care for the people they love. That doesn't mean those dreams are gone forever. James's story isn't really about music. It's about courage. It's about believing in yourself after years of doubt. And it's about the power of one person refusing to stop believing in you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Redeemed Single Dad for more powerful stories of hope, resilience, and second chances. Thank you for spending these moments with us. And remember, sometimes the person everyone laughs at today becomes the person everyone admires tomorrow. Until next time, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep believing that one moment can change an entire life.